Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. If you're brand new here, my name is Constance, and today I'm bringing you into the kitchen for my second Souptember video. This is a collaboration that was put together by Leanne over at the Mennonite Farmhouse. And the soup that I'm making today is, it's not a very common soup, I don't think. But it's something that I absolutely love, and that is German Brussels sprout soup. It's got wonderful Brussels sprouts, and yes, I do mean wonderful Brussels sprouts. When I was growing up, I never had Brussels sprouts. I don't recall my mom ever cooking Brussels sprouts my entire childhood. And maybe it's because she didn't like them. I don't know. I've never asked her. But I know I never had Brussels sprouts. And all I remember hearing was like people being, ooh, Brussels sprouts. But you know what? When I was a kid, I didn't care for cabbage either. But I love cabbage now. And isn't this basically a little head of cabbage? I mean, they are related. Just different genetics to determine the shape. Just like cauliflower and broccoli. So I've got a package here of Brussels sprouts, about a pound to a pound and a third, just depends on what you got. And I'm going through and I'm trimming off the stems and taking off the outer leaves, and then looking for any bits that are kind of a little discolored, maybe turning brown a little bit, and just trimming those off. And then I'm cutting the Brussels sprouts all in half, and I'm just tossing these into the bowl just to kind of hold them while I'm getting them all ready. So once the Brussels sprouts are all finished, I will head on over to the stove and we'll get started with making the soup. Alright, so my Brussels sprouts are all prepared, and I have them sitting over there in a bowl. And right now I'm going to cut up some bacon. Now I don't eat pork, so the bacon that I'm using is a beef bacon. The brand is Thousand Hills, and I order it through Azure Standard. I live in an area where there's not very many options for healthy foods. And so I use Azure Standard a lot for a lot of my groceries. And so I'm just going to open up this bacon here. And you're going to want about 6 slices or so. And I'll do this with beef bacon or with turkey bacon. But beef bacon is my favorite because when you are wanting drippings, it does have that nice layer of fat that is in there. Because generally, normally, beef bacon is made from brisket. So you have the layer of fat to give you the drippings to cook in. And so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this into thin little strips. It's actually still a little bit frozen, but that's okay. It'll work just fine. I can just kind of break it apart with my fingers. And for those of you who are kind of new here, in case you're wondering what is up with my hand, I had a little mishap with a German Shepherd. And there's a whole video about that, and my hand is still healing. It'll take some time, so I keep this hand protected. Alright, so I'm just going to break up the bacon, kind of separate those pieces. Again, my bacon is still a little bit frozen because yes, Jotzi. Alright, that'll do it. Alright, so over here I've got my little soup pot ready. This is a 4.5 quart Dutch oven. But I'm going to go ahead and grab my bacon here. And now this recipe's been on my website for many years. And when I published it, I made this with red onion. And I often will still make it with red onion. However, I have a whole bunch of traditional yellow onions that are pre-diced in my freezer. And so I will just use what I have on hand. So if you've got red onions, great. If not, yellow onions work just fine. Now on average, a onion that is diced up gives you about a cup or so of diced onions. And so I'm just going to kind of eyeball how much onion that I need. Again, about a cup or just a diced onion. But first I'm going to heat up my pan here, or my soup pot. And I'm going to throw in about 2 tablespoons of butter, just to kind of give everything a head start, because beef bacon and turkey bacon are generally leaner than bacon that comes from a pig. Now the beef bacon does have a little bit more fat, which you could see in there, but sometimes it doesn't. And if you're using turkey, it definitely doesn't. So I always toss in a little bit of butter there to kind of give it a start. And let me grab. I'm going to let that start melting, and I'm just going to kind of break apart my diced onion. Now, when I do this, when I dice up and freeze my onions, I'll spread them out on a baking sheet on some parchment paper and freeze them, and then go ahead and put them frozen into the containers. That way your onions aren't going to freeze in a great big block of onion, and you're able to get out what you need much more easily. So again, I'm going to need about a cup or so. 2 good handfuls should do it. I'll put these back in the freezer. I recently switched over from using the classic plastic freezer containers that my mom used, my grandma used, everybody used, and instead I'm using my wick jars. They work very well. Alright, so we've got the onion there in the pot. So we've got the onion. We're not going to do our Brussels sprouts yet. We want to do the onion and the bacon with the butter. And I'm just going to toss this in here, and I'm going to let the onions and the bacon cook together until they're nice and golden. Alright, so we've got some beautiful caramelization, beautiful color on the onions and the bacon. So now I'm just going to scoop all of this out into a bowl. Try and get all of the onion out if possible. And I'm using a slotted spoon here. And I always get questions about these spoons. I bought this in a shop in Alabama called Ashley Mercantile. It's like my favorite store in Alabama. And they have 2 locations. They have one in Coleman, which is the original, and then they have another one in Florence. I absolutely love shopping there, but these were handmade by someone in Alabama, and that's where that came from. Alright, so I've got my beautiful caramelized, flavored up pan here, And so now I'm actually going to add a little bit more butter because, again, bacon that is made from beef or chicken tends to be quite lean. So I add a little bit more fat to the pot here. And so now I'm going to go in with the Brussels sprouts. And I'm going to cook these until, again, we've got some beautiful caramelized color on the Brussels sprouts and they're nice and tender. Now, to help these cook through a little bit more quickly, I do like to go ahead and put my lid on for the first few minutes or the first little bit to let the steam kind of build up and the heat to help the Brussels sprouts cook through. And then afterwards, when they're starting to get tender, I'll go ahead and remove the lid and let them finish up and kind of brown and caramelize as well. Now, while those are cooking, I actually wanted to take just a second to mention in my last video, or my last Souptember video, it was for a curry chicken, Thai curry chicken soup. And I had so many questions and comments about curry. Now, there's generally two different kinds of curry. There is the traditional yellow powdered curry, and this is a blend of seasonings. So you're going to have turmeric, you're going to have all sorts of things in there. And that type of curry is more common in like Indian cooking and things like that. But then the one that I used in that soup was Thai curry, which is a completely different kind of curry. It is more pepper based. It is Thai, and it's going to have a completely different flavor profile. So if you've ever had a curry before and you weren't sure about it or didn't maybe care for it, and say it was the yellow curry, again, the Thai curry, completely different. Doesn't taste anything like the yellow curry. There were also a lot of comments about the heat. People worried about it being spicy. Now, let me tell you, I am a spice wimp, okay? I don't do spicy foods much at all. My husband now, he loves spicy. I do not. But the red Thai curry chicken soup didn't have a ton of the curry in there. But additionally, the broth had a can of coconut milk in there. And the coconut milk tones down the heat. So if you aren't able to handle spicy food, don't be intimidated by that soup because it is not spicy. I can tell you that for sure, or I wouldn't be able to eat it. In the case of that soup, the red Thai curry paste just gives a wonderful flavor to the soup. Alright, you guys, so my Brussels sprouts are tender and they've got some beautiful color on there. There we go. You see all those beautiful brown bits. That is pure flavor right there. So I'm going to scoop out half of my Brussels sprouts here. So we're going to take out about half of them. Set those aside. Now the recipe calls for 3 cups of broth, but I'm just going to start off with 2 cups. There should be half of this carton here. Okay. I'm going to add in some pepper. About a half a teaspoon. And I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add in a half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. I'm going to add in 1 cup of heavy cream. But you could also use some half and half or whole milk if you prefer. We are not afraid of healthy fats around here. Next, I'm going to add in about maybe a third or so of the bacon and onion mixture. Alright, so now I'm going to do something that might seem a little unusual. I'm going to puree this with my immersion blender here. You can use a regular blender if you don't have one of these, or you could use a food processor. You would just have to do it in batches. Like I said, that might seem like it's kind of unusual that I'm pureeing the bacon and the onion and Brussels sprouts, but it's going to give a great texture to the broth, kind of thicken it up a little bit naturally because you have all that stuff in there. And it's also going to make just this incredible flavor because every bite will have that bacon flavor and the onion and the Brussels sprouts in them. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add back the rest of my bacon and onion. And I'm actually going to save a little bit of that out just to garnish the bowl. Add back in the Brussels sprouts. Alright, so the last ingredient that we're going to add is about 1.5 tablespoons of parsley. Now, you don't have to add that much if you don't like parsley, but it really gives this a nice bright flavor. Now, like I said earlier, I did leave out some of the chicken broth. If I felt like this was too thick and I wanted to thin it out a little bit, I could just go ahead and add in that last cup. But since it's just myself and my husband, you know, we're empty nesters, I think this is just right. This soup does not make a big batch. Now, if you were cooking for a family, you would probably want to double this recipe or use it as a side to serve with something else. But for my husband and myself, this is just perfect. So now I'm just going to let all of this simmer together for about 10 minutes or so, just to make sure that the broth and the cream that I put in there are nice and heated through. Let them kind of absorb the flavor from the nutmeg and the pepper and the parsley and all of that. And then it will be ready to serve up. Look at this beautiful rich soup. Now some people might look at that and go, ooh, that's just so brown and sad looking, but you know, German food does have a lot of brown colors to it, but it is so rich and comforting and warm and delicious. You will absolutely love this. So don't let the color or the look of it fool you. It is delicious. So there you go, my friends. As you saw, very simple, easy ingredients and tons of flavor and lots of good things in those Brussels sprouts. So if you would like to make this recipe, you can get a free printable version of it on my website, cosmopolitancornbread.com, where you can find over 800 recipes. And be sure to sign up for my free email newsletter so that you never miss a thing. Now, as I said at the beginning, this video is part of the Souptember collaboration by Leanne over at the Mennonite Farmhouse. And throughout the month, there have been all sorts of wonderful soup recipes by a variety of YouTubers who have participated, and you can find all of them in the link down below for the playlist for Souptember 2025. And every time you watch and leave a comment on those videos during the month of September, you are entering for the giveaway that will take place at the end of the month. So be sure to check out all of the details in the video description here down below, where you can learn more about that, as well as a link to the welcome video where Leanne shared all of the details. So that is it for today, friends. Thank you for joining me here again at the homestead. God bless, and I'll talk to y'all next time.